A very Merry Christmas to all the members of Steelers Nation out there. Today on Steelers Talk on Christmas Eve, we're going to be talking about why I think Mason Rudolph needs to start for the Pittsburgh Steelers next week versus the Seattle Seahawks over Kenny Pickett. Also, the Steelers are reportedly ready to extend Mike Tomlin. Forget about firing the guy. They're ready to extend him this offseason. We'll break down that report here in just a second. Then also, I got the updated playoff odds for our Pittsburgh Steelers coming up here in just a second. But first, make sure you click that subscribe button for in-depth, free, and daily Steelers coverage all throughout the rest of the 2023 regular season, and then also into the offseason, where we're going to be having free agency coverage, draft coverage. When they hire a new OC, we're going to have a breaking news video for you guys. So make sure to click that subscribe button for wall-to-wall Steelers coverage, both in during season and off-season. All right, so let's start with Mason Rudolph. And I really do think, guys, I said this yesterday on the live watch party and even on the postgame show last night, that I think Mason Rudolph needs to be the starter for the Pittsburgh Steelers next week when the Steelers play the Seattle Seahawks at Lumen Field in Seattle, Washington. So you take a look at the stats between Mason Rudolph and Kenny Pickett when they both played the Bengals. So Kenny arguably had his best game as a Steeler in Week 12 against the Bengals, had a completion percentage of over 70%, had 278 yards, but he didn't have a touchdown, didn't have an interception, and he collected a quarterback rating of 97.8. Now you look at Mason Rudolph, the completion percentage not quite as good, but still decent, I would say, at 62.9. He had more passing yards, he had more yards per attempt, and then not only that, but he actually got this team into the to the end zone repeatedly in this one. Steelers got 4 touchdowns as a whole. 2 of those were passing touchdowns from Mason Rudolph. Still no interceptions, protected the football, and then the quarterback rating was better than Kenny Pickett's best performance this season with a 124 quarterback rating. Of course, the Steelers scored 34 points. That's the most that they've scored all season. I think with the playoffs on the line here, and with them still technically within reach, we'll go over their playoff odds here in just a second. But I think with those playoffs still technically in reach, you have to stick with the hot hand here. You got to go with Mason Rudolph. And listen, guys, I'm not saying that if Mason goes out there and he throws 2 picks in the first half that you have to stick with him, right? I still think that you should have Mason at a relatively short leash. And if he starts to stink, okay, go to Kenny Pickett, all right? So I'm not against going to Pickett if Rudolph, has a rough start to this football game against the Seattle Seahawks, right? Lumen Field, one of the toughest places to go play as a road opponent. Obviously, Mason didn't play a perfect game last night. He did miss some big throws, including a wide-open touchdown pass to Deontay Johnson on a slot fade. So it's definitely far from a sure thing that Mason Rudolph will actually play well in Week 17, but I definitely think Mason Rudolph needs to start in Week 17 because the offense played their best game of the season to this point, and you just got to stick with the hot hand with the playoffs still in line. Now, coming up here, I'm going to tell you about the newest report from Mike Florio saying that the Steelers want to extend Mike Tomlin. So forget about firing the guy, man. I think that they're going to try to get a deal done this offseason. But before we get into that report, let's have a word from our sponsor here at Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use our code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100 today. If you want to spice up your game days this NFL season, you can get started with Prize Picks today. Prize Picks is a skill-based, real money daily fantasy sports game. And you might be asking yourselves, how does daily fantasy sports work? Well, here's how. You pick 2 to 6 players, and if they'll go for more or less than their Prize Picks projection. Coop and I, we made some money with Prize Picks last night with our entry, man. Just take a look at this. We took the more on Mason Rudolph passing yards, hit that. We took the more on George Pickens receiving yards, smashed that. And then we had one of the demons. So that's one. It's one of those promotions that they're doing this week where it's the harder to get entries, but if you get it, it's the higher payout. So we made even more money by hitting the more there on the touchdowns for Najee Harris. Of course, he got that touchdown in the first half. You can make money with Prize Picks right now if you know ball by checking it out now at prizepicks.com/CLNS and use our code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100 today. So Mike Tomlin, it seems like, the latest rumors and the outside noise here has been that Mike Tomlin might move on from the Steelers might move on from Mike Tomlin, all these different things after that 3-game skid. But according to Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk, it's actually the exact opposite feeling within the building there at the Pittsburgh Steelers headquarters as Art Rooney, the owner of this team, is looking to extend Mike Tomlin this offseason. This is what Florio had to report yesterday on Football Night in America. A lot of noise on the outside. Inside, it's business as usual for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They have no desire whatsoever to make a change at head coach, and they have no reason to believe that Tomlin wants to go. They would actually like to extend his contract, which runs through the 2024 season. They like to get that done before next season begins. He's already involved in roster planning for next year and the year after in 2025. So, I hate to break it to you, Tomlin haters. I hate to break it to all the Steelers fans out there that want to see Mike Tomlin gone. But it seems like, especially after that win last night with very limited personnel, especially at certain positions, inside linebacker, safety, quarterback. Mike Tomlin's Steelers just won a 34-11 football game with their third-string quarterback, all right? I think that pretty much sealed Mike Tomlin's fate as the Steelers head coach heading into the 2024 season. Unless Mike Tomlin decides to leave the Steelers for some unknown reason, I don't see any reason why he'd want to leave. He's got guys like T.J. Watt and Minkah Fitzpatrick and Alex Highsmith and Cam Hayward, and he's going to have an opportunity to maybe get a new quarterback next year. I don't really see any reason for Mike Tomlin to just abandon all that and leave the Pittsburgh Steelers. So if you're looking for the Steelers to get a new head coach next year, I would say don't hold your breath. So as for an extension here, I think that he's definitely going to come back, and I think that's the right move for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think they should bring back Mike Tomlin. I don't think the time is right to move off of him, but is signing him to an extension really the right call here? Like, if the Steelers have another bad season next year, do you really want to be hampered with that extended contract? Because the Pittsburgh Steelers are just not going to want to fire Mike Tomlin next year if they end up extending him. They're not going to want to pay a head coach that kind of money and fire him. So, I really do think that if an extension gets done, Mike Tomlin is going to be here for the foreseeable future, and that really limits your options as far as next year goes, which I don't really like personally. But let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. Should the Steelers extend Mike Tomlin's contract this offseason? Type E if you want to extend him, or type N if you don't want to extend Mike Tomlin this offseason. So before I go here, let's talk a little bit about playoff odds here, because coming into the week, a lot of Steelers fans, we're saying this season's over. We only have like a 3% chance of making the playoffs. But now, because of that win last night, your chances have increased to 9%, according to the New York Times. Now, that is still a less than 10% chance. And what that tells me is that you still have to win out. It is still do or die time here in the Steel City. And this is one of the reasons why I'm telling the Steelers to go ahead and start Mason Rudolph. All right, you got to go with the hot hand. You got to put out all the stops in order to win these final two football games. And you got to put the best quarterback that you can possibly out there to lead this offense. And if you are able to accomplish that, if you're able to beat both the Seahawks next week and then the Baltimore Ravens in Week 18, your playoff odds increase to 76%. Now, you definitely still need some help from some other teams in the AFC, but if you win the next two games, you get a 3/4 chance to make the NFL playoffs. I kind of like those odds, and I definitely think if you win out, I think the Steelers will end up making the postseason here in 2023. But let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. Do you still believe the Steelers can do it? Can they make the playoffs? Type yes or no for me down there in the comment section. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments. That'll be it for me today, Steelers Nation. Thank you guys so much for all of your support throughout this year. You guys have a Merry Christmas. Enjoy it with your families. We love you and we appreciate you here at Steelers Talk. Make sure you click that subscribe button. And until next time, guys, here we go, Steelers.